48 seconds to go. All gonna come down to this. And the kick is good. Michigan stunned the college football world. Now we're seeing punches. This might get ugly.
Came up short here again today. Not easy to swallow at all.
A stunner at Syracuse. Come from 21 down and take down Miami.
Dabo Swinney, congrats. I got you in, baby.
That's about as good of a half of football in this environment in a rivalry game Sark could have hoped for.
Texas falls on it, makes the recovery to secure Texas's spot.
The rivalry's one thing, but now to go compete for an SEC championship our first year, it's pretty exciting.
They say the camera adds 10 pounds. That's not true. Those two both look as heavy as they are. They enjoyed their Thanksgiving as they should. It's been a very successful season. Stanford Steve, Greg McElroy. Feels like just yesterday we were talking about Ireland and Georgia Tech and Florida State, and here we are looking at the SEC championship game. Early Texas money pushing the Longhorns from an opening price of pick'em to -2.5. Total sitting at 50.5. A little bit of over money there. Greg, we'll start with you. Does Texas get its against the spread revenge in the rematch between these two?
Oh, I just love this steam. I love it. I absolutely love it. And yes, I would side with the Longhorns right now. This has a very eerily similar feel to when Georgia was a favorite against Alabama in 2021. And then what happened? Bama beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and then things came back in the national championship. They had the rematch, and Georgia was favored again. All the public jumped on Bama and said, hang on a second, they just beat them. They have Georgia's number. Oh, no. Vegas knows. I like Texas in this situation. They're a better football team. They've improved drastically. Their newfound commitment to the run game has been amazing. And frankly, since Georgia played Texas, they've regressed in many ways, down to the point in which they're giving up a lot of yardage running the football. And Texas has now proven to commit to running the football if the other team can get exposed to that area. So I would definitely lean towards Texas here, and I would like leaning over just a little bit, even though that feels a little more trendy in a big matchup like this, Steve.
Yeah, that total in the first game was about 57. It came down to 49.5 here, so I like what you're thinking about. Look for Texas in first quarter markets as well, given how slow Georgia has started in so many of these games the last few weeks. Steve, I'm curious, when it comes to the SEC and the futures market, Greg mentioned Alabama from years ago. They're -145 to make the playoff right now. Do you see them getting in?
I disagree with the ranking right now. I have Ole Miss ahead of Alabama. That's why it would be a no bet for me. Laying money, you still have a lot going on. And obviously the ACC championship, what happens there. So I would not play that. I feel like I'm on the other side of those three three-loss SEC teams. I have Ole Miss ahead of South Carolina and Alabama, so I would not pay the price for Alabama.
Ole Miss 25-1. That'd be a nice little payoff if something like that hits. All right, elsewhere, let's go to the Big Ten. Penn State backdoors its way into the conference championship game thanks to Ohio State's loss against Michigan. Here we go again. Big game, James Franklin in the big spot. Steve, would you take the 3.5 with the Nittany Lions, knowing Franklin's history?
It's crazy. This is just like Penn State going against Ohio State, Penn State going against Michigan. They're the underdog. Will Franklin overcome the horrible numbers? Right now, I would lean towards taking the 3.5. When I look at Penn State, they have a difference maker up front in Abdul Carter. They have difference makers on defense. And the biggest question is, how will Penn State tackle in space and deal with that speed of Oregon? All the pressure's on Oregon. Now, if Oregon loses, they drop to the 5. Well, all that talk is going to be about Oregon coming into this game. They're flying under the radar as much as any number one team in the country that I could think of in years past. But right now, I like what Penn State's versatility brings to the table on the offensive side. I know they don't have wide receivers that separate, but get those balls to to Tyler Warren and those running backs. Right now, I would lean with Penn State.
As funny as it is, I feel like Penn State matches up a little better against Oregon than they do against Ohio State. Penn State just has a little bit more twitch, especially with Abdul Carter and their edge players, Denai Dennis Sutton. Like, they have guys on the edges that can win. And the one area of Oregon's offense that has been attacked at times have been their tackles. So I do think there is a way for them to get home. But the big thing for me is, can Penn State score? I mean, that's an honest question.
Yeah.
I really don't know the answer to that. And I look, and while I am so impressed with Tyler Warren, their tight end, I think Singleton, their running back, looks healthier now as the season's gone along. Was a little banged up there in the mid-year part of the season. I still don't think they have receivers that can separate and create big plays. So I look at this game, I would lay them, and then I would look towards the under. So I think both defenses will play decent, and I just don't know if Oregon's going to need to take a lot of risks and maybe expose Dylan Gabriel to that elite pass rush, knowing their defense can probably hold up against Penn State.
Dabo and Clemson open as a 2-point favorite, but it's been nothing but SMU money, pushing this number all the way to Mustangs -2.5. It's a 4.5-point move in less than 48 hours. Steve, what are we thinking, dog or favorite here?
I can't imagine how many underdog speeches Dabo Swinney is going to have for his team in motivating them for an ACC championship as Clemson, little old Clemson is an underdog to SMU. I look at Clemson as being the best team SMU has played. I look at what they bring to the table as far as the defensive front. I think that's a tough job for SMU. 2 big runs Lenore Sellis got, and that was the difference of the game. Clemson was fantastic the rest of the game on defense. Clemson's offense will have more success than they did, obviously, last week in South Carolina, who has a really, really good defense. So I think Clemson gets it done. I like Clemson money line.
Greg, help me out with this. SMU is +230 to miss the playoff. Now, if someone likes Clemson like Steve does, to win this matchup, should they, rather than play Clemson on the money line at +105, could you play SMU to miss the playoff +230? Would the second loss knock them out, in your opinion?
Is this the most Fortenbaugh question ever? And I actually very much like the thought process, like extra value on top of the already thrashing had they lost the ACC. I think it's the right play. And while I look and I kind of understand very much where Steve's coming from the playoff standpoint, it's going to be hard, I think, to acknowledge, hey, the SEC has 3 teams that are in many ways indecipherable against each other, whereas you have the 2-loss ACC runner-up in SMU or the 2-loss ACC third-place team in Miami. Based on what the committee's done to this point, they have rewarded win-loss record over strength of schedule. So if the committee, through the first 4 rankings, has told you that strength of schedule is not important, that win-loss is, I don't think it's a good bet at +230, but we have seen committees change their mind drastically in the penultimate rate, from the penultimate rankings to the final rankings. So I would not bet against a 4th SEC team getting in either. So if Alabama's minus money, I don't love that number, and I certainly don't love playing +230, especially knowing that SMU's in a really good position to not just win the game outright, but potentially win the game by a convincing margin if they play their best football.
What a story they would be after that early season loss to BYU. All right, I'm still trying to get over losing USC +7.5, but that leads us to the Irish, who have now won 10 straight after taking out the Trojans. That Northern Illinois debacle back in September, a thing of the past. Notre Dame now finds itself 9-1 to win it all. Steve, given all we've seen this season from the top of the heat, are the Irish worth a look here?
I think they're definitely worth a look, guys. The problem is they got to avoid, a Texas or Oregon until the last possible second. Those are the 2 teams that come to mind that I think would be tough matchups for Notre Dame. But that's the toughest thing about the bracket. We still don't know how it's going to be aligned. I think but now as far as the value with Notre Dame at 9-1, I like that a lot. I think they're more than capable on both sides of the ball. I know SC, scored on them, but when it came down to it, Notre Dame's defense made plays. And I actually think SC's skill guys are a lot better, on the perimeter, are better than some teams in the playoff. So I think it's about the matchups. I think there's a road for Notre Dame to get there. I would definitely worth considering that 9-1.
Their best pass rusher's been out. Their best corner's been out since the Louisville game. So they're going to miss those guys tremendously down the stretch. My thing is, I don't know if they're going to be able to run it down people's throats in the playoff the way they'd have against some of the teams they've seen in the regular season. They have yet to see a super elite defense. And we found out now, as season's gone along, A&M's defense is not super elite. So who's the best rush defense that Notre Dame's faced? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think they've seen anything like they're going to see when they play Ohio State, when they play Texas, when they play some of the teams that they'd have to face en route to a national championship.
Great work as always, boys. I want to get through these conference championship games as fast as possible so we can turn our attention to what matters, the Belk Bowl, the Bahamas Bowl, and all that stuff where we really know how to make the money. Nice work, gentlemen.
Take all
Tyler,
the underdogs,
back over
Joey.
to
You know the play.